I'd now like to introduce you to James Dutton from a company called NutriCare, who make a new age Band-Aid called Patch. James, what is a patch?
Well, patch is not a Band-Aid, but that's all good. Patch started because my son had a bad reaction to a wound care dressing. As a father, I put a product on his skin and realised very quickly that he had a problem with it. As we tried other products, they kept on reacting. As I went to the pharmacist, they kept on saying it was a problem with my son. So I started doing a bit of research and realised that 25% of the world population have got the same issues as what he did, which was
with these wound care products.
With the wound care products, yeah.
Okay.
So we developed this as a skin-friendly product made from natural bamboo fibre and eradicated a lot of the toxic chemicals out of the product to produce Patch, as it's known today. And we didn't start off too green either. We started off as a product, obviously, to fix that problem. And as we grew, we put more emphasis into the fact of stripping away further plastics and everything else out of the packaging, to now have a product that's fully compostable off the shelf.
So can I ask about that? So was the reaction to the plastic-related chemicals, was it? Is that how it turned out?
It wasn't one brand. It wasn't a specific brand. It wasn't a specific product. It was just a combination of different adhesives or substrate materials, being plastic or latexes or silicon type componentry. Right. And it just simply kept on. It didn't matter what product I put on there, it kept on reacting on him. So I thought he had a problem, and then I obviously looked further into it, and you look at university studies in relation to Harvard, Monash, all the way through to Cambridge. They all had issues and studies around contact dermatitis, irritants on the skin, not just one, it wasn't a specific component that a lot of them sort of put back to, like a rosin or anything like that. So,
and did you know anything about wound care before you decided to become a manufacturer of it?
No, I've had various businesses in different categories all the way through my life. But I was passionate about this because it was my family member, my son, and when I saw what he had and saw the numbers of the global population, I thought, well, look, this is something that can really help people around the world, and that's where it's got us to today.
So 25% of the world population has a problem with sticky plaster that you put on wounds.
In a general snapshot, that's basically the average number. Some areas in Northern Europe, up around Sweden and those sort of areas, are a lot higher. Right. I think in Iceland it goes up to about 35% now. That can be a combination of not having enough vitamin D, living inside, 80% of the year under air conditionings and components that dry your skin out. But different markets have got different issues in a lot of the ways. So we've sort of developed something now that works for everybody. It's for the good of the consumer, and it's also good of the planet.
Now, and you've gone from nowhere to having, I'm not sure if I'm overquoting this, but you're in more than 20,000 stores around the world now. Is that right? 35,000
stores now, okay. And 35,000 stores, and we've just hit 40 countries globally for distribution. We quickly realised that there was a big opportunity with this market space, and the fact of making something more natural makes it a little bit more vulnerable for copycats and that sort of thing. So we tightened up our production and what the product contained and how it worked, and then we went out to market very quickly to expand our distribution to support the market that we could see that we could actually help.
And you're one of the fast growing companies in the US, I understand?
Yeah, we just got ranked number 2 fastest growing company in the US with the Mintel data report.
Amazing.
Amazing success. Like, you think about how COVID actually hit the world in January, and all the way through from January, each month we've grown month on month. We've actually been supported by major retailers across the US, including Walmart and Walgreens, Target, CVS and Sprouts, and all these beautiful, wonderful health food stores. And it just shows testament to how much commitment our team are really pushing into it and really growing the brand.
And of course, the consumers need the product, because otherwise they wouldn't be buying it, or the consumers appreciate such a sustainable product. Thank you so much, James, for your time today. It's greatly appreciated, and congratulations. Fabulous product.
Thanks so much, and all the best.
Thanks very much. Next, welcome to Maria Abadilla from the Orangutan Alliance. Maria certifies products as being palm oil free, something that is incredibly important and more and more people are coming to understand. Maria, how did you get into certifying palm oil free products?
Well, this is a very personal story, Jen. Basically, I've come and lived in Asia for several years, and I saw the impact firsthand on people and also the planet, and also, you know, animals, in terms of the fires that happened in Indonesia, and also certainly on people and how that affects them in terms of land grabbing and those types of issues. But yeah,
so no, so essentially the problem with palm oil is it's great because it makes products work much more effectively, but on the other hand, the problem is that in order to grow it, you need to plough down rainforests, and a lot of these rainforests are in Asia, aren't they?
Normally, if we wanted to create something, you know, we would have an innovation pipeline and we would work towards creating alternatives. Right. And when an issue such as this was so big, I just could not understand why we couldn't respond and start, you know, looking for deforestation-free alternatives. You know, so that is why I basically decided that it was time to have consumers such as myself, you know, who are really concerned about this issue, have a voice. And that's what Orangutan Alliance is all about.
Yeah, fantastic. So you created the palm oil free certification, which is you call it an ethical mark, I think. And that, how do ethical marks change the landscape of products and the way consumers understand problems?
They change, you know, businesses and sustainability, because firstly, they create demand. So manufacturers need to listen to that demand, and it might result in innovation of new ingredients, for example. And also they have an important role in terms of having communication with consumers. They can raise awareness or garner consumers around a project or an issue, but also we can get feedback in terms of what they believe in something. I think what I'd like to leave everyone with is really, everyone creates an impact. You know, I remember a quote, everyone has an impact, and it's really up to you what impact that will be. And, you know, we don't have much time. I remember seeing an article recently in National Geographic, and it said that, you know, 10 years ago, the UN came together with 196 countries to work on areas like climate change. And 10 years later, we haven't met that. Yeah. So I think it's really important that we come together and think, not just rely on policy change, but think, what can we do now to create change for biodiversity in the planet?
Yeah. Next up, we have Nick and Harry Robson, who are very special people because they're a father and son founder team who are turning water bottles into sunglasses. Nick or Harry, I don't know who's going to tell us the story, but would you tell us a good citizen story?
Gosh, it's a big one, isn't it? It started with you, didn't it?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. It started with Harry and his brother at school learning about plastic, which is wonderful. But you were a little bit upset about the animals and the planet, and Harry kept coming home really upset and said, "Dad, we can do something about this." And when you were 7 at the time, I think, you know, looks at you in the eye and says, well, "What are we going to do?" You have to kind of go, "Okay, we'll do something." So we thought about it, didn't we? And we came up with some ideas, and we realized that we could play our part. And whilst we might not be able to solve the problem, we can use our kind of skills and our story. So we looked at plastic bottles. Plastic bottles, I think there's 500 billion made, 7% get recycled. And we thought, what can we do with this bottle? There's got to be something. And we live in a hot climate. We looked at products and sunglasses. Sunglasses weigh exactly the same amount as a bottle. So we thought, if we can turn this bottle, one 600ml bottle, into a pair of sunglasses, wouldn't that be amazing?
So can I just ask, what did you know about plastic and sunglasses before you decided to turn a plastic bottle into a pair of sunglasses?
Well, we knew that much about plastic and knew that much about sunglasses.
We started with a purpose, untrash the planet, and we had 4 principles that we thought, we don't need a business plan, it's too complicated.
Right.
No one sticks to them, and they can change overnight. One phone call can change a business plan. But our principles are, always use 100% recycled plastic, no one or the planet ever gets harmed, design a product that lasts and can be repaired. And what was your one?
Every worker gets to spend time with their family. So if they're working on the weekend, they get fired.
But 2.5 years later, yeah, we're on it. We never give up.
So on that, 2.5 years later, you've gone from a father and son having a chat about the plastic waste on the planet, deciding that you were somehow going to find a way to turn it into a pair of sunglasses, and now you own a whole window in Selfridges in London.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. When I heard that we were going to be in Selfridges, and looked at the building, I was just like,
that's a very big building.
He thought it was a shop, like a tiny shop. Yeah, that's a very, I think this, look, if anyone's watching this, always back yourself with an idea, because you never know what's going to happen every day. But fast forward, yes, there's Prada, there's a doorway, there's good citizens. And we got the window just under 3 months.
Amazing, amazing. And just on that point, so 2.5 years later, you literally made thousands of pairs of sunglasses now.
More failures. We're recycling that plastic.
Oh, good man. Good man. What would you say about the impact that what the kinds of things you're doing can have on educating people and just getting consumers to behave better? How are people responding to it?
I think it shows people that you can make anything out of anything, and it's possible no matter what. So you should always have a go.
I have a very, very harsh critic who's my best mate, and he's called David. And he walks around with $2,000 Pradas, and he was like, you don't want to be doing this, mate. You're going to lose a lot of money. They're his favourite pair now. And it's made him think, okay, these glasses are awesome, and I feel good wearing them. And it's beyond just wearing them because he's my mate. He's actually thought about his entire wardrobe. He's thought about his house. He's thought about everything. And it's made him think, okay, if my mate and his 2 little kids and wife can do this and take on such a mammoth task, how come other people aren't doing things with recycled plastic? And so that sparked that conversation. And we know our glasses use only 1 bottle. We can only make so much impact, but it's the conversation. And on our website, we measure how many people have seen our brand in the media. And I reckon we're over 15 million people have seen our brand or had a story. So that's interesting, even if it sparks a conversation at dinner or with a friend, or they come back. That's kind of it. We've won.
That is it, isn't it? That's how entrepreneurialism can change the world, literally. Thank you so much for your time, Harry and Nick. I'll better let you get back to school, Harry. And best wishes for the future of good citizens. Thank you so much.
Really privileged to be speaking to you. Thank you.
Next up, let me introduce you to Stephen Dunn. Stephen is the chair of the investor group Climate Change and also on the investment committee for superannuation fund CBUS. Stephen, you weren't always a climate-focused investor. And I'm just wondering, first of all, how did you find yourself in this space?
Jen, I think that I found myself in this space primarily because of the risk that the climate poses to investors worldwide. From my perspective, and the more I've read and sort of researched about it, climate change represents a systemic risk of enormous proportions for investors, particularly long-term investors. And as chair of CBUS, we invest money on behalf of workers in Australia, particularly people working in the construction industry. And they're going to, on average, they're going to retire in about 30 years' time. So the average age of the fund is around sort of that mid-30s. So in about 30 years' time, around 2050, most of them are going to be retiring. And essentially, they're charging us with the responsibility of investing successfully for them over the next 30 years. And as I look forward, climate change represents the most systemic and most significant investment risk that we need to deal with.
So you really see it through the lens of risk. And do you think, which came first? Was it people like you who started to realise that there was a risk to in an investment sense, or was it coming from consumers who were worried about climate?
I think it's sort of, it's easy to say a bit of both, but I do think investors, I won't say are late to the party. A number of investors have been sort of thinking about this for quite some time. But generally investors are held accountable over a very short period of time. But pension funds and pension fund investors such as ourselves must take that longer term view. So I think that from a perspective of really sort of trying to deeply understand what climate risk is and what does it mean to investment portfolios, I think investors have spent a lot of time thinking about it. Consumers and the investing public in terms of the superannuation members are concerned about it, but as you know, it's a very complex set of scenarios that can play out in terms of climate change, and therefore trying to sort of process that as a lay investor is quite difficult. So they're really saying to their board of trustees, you guys need to get onto this and successfully navigate as best you can this systemic risk.
Yeah, the investor group on climate change. So how much, I mean, they've got several $1 trillion, really, haven't they, under management? Yep. Well, they represent several $1 trillion. So the more it kind of allows them, well, people are more likely to listen, which then creates more awareness, which then has this kind of tumbleweed effect, I think. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the aspect around sort of for a individual investor, individual shareholder in, for instance, BHP or in Rio or any of those has very little sort of influence. However, as a collective, then we have significant power, and I think that one of the initiatives under the IGCC banner is the Climate 100 initiative, which is really targeting the top 100 companies globally in terms of top 100 emitters on the listed stage, and engaging with them both from the collective superannuation funds here in Australia and fund managers, but also globally. And by actually coming to the table, you're speaking for a significant part of their shareholder base, and so management must listen. And we've seen sort of BHP, for instance, actually sort of change the way that they actually go about their membership with advocacy groups who advocate, like the Minerals Council, on their behalf, and ensuring that there is an alignment between what they say to us investors and also the membership that they're, or the advocacy groups that they're part of. And that's been a really quite important thing. But that only occurs when, for want of a better term, we gang up on them and get change, which we can do, as opposed to, I'm not saying that individuals actions are irrelevant, they're just not as powerful unless we can actually pool our resources together, which is what happens under IGCC and our sort of related groups across the globe.
Yeah, it's certainly changed everything really in terms of being able to shift the dial. Stephen, we could talk all day. There's so much to cover. Thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, Graham Ross from Blocktex. Blocktex recover raw materials from fabrics.
So Blocktex is a clean technology company. We've developed a chemical separation process that deals with blended fabrics. So if you think about your everyday items like your sheets and your linen, your shirts and your pants, often they are made out of two fibers, polyester and cotton. What we've done is we knew that there is value in those materials. And so we developed technology to basically unlock the cotton from the polyester, which allows us to then turn those two materials back into their raw products to be reused in many industries.
So what are cotton and polyester really made of? Because that is the kind of thing that I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah, so polyester is a man-made petrochemical. So the polyester is just another name for PET, and PET is the same material that's used in Coke and Pepsi Cola bottles.
Right.
It's just, and then cotton is the plant that's grown. What we think about cotton is we think about that to be a really healthy, natural product. But in actual fact, it uses a lot of water to grow the cotton plant, and also it uses a lot of pesticides to control, the diseases and the influences. So what's really interesting is something I didn't know up until many years ago was an average cotton t-shirt uses about 3,000 litres of water by the time you grow the plant and you manufacture products. So it's quite interesting how we perceive natural things. But where we came at the business is my business partner and I have got a background in the fashion industry, and the clothing, we knew that the clothing actually had value. What we need to do is develop the technology to recover those resources back to their raw materials, basically the building blocks that would then become fibers for them to be reused back into either the textile industry, but really importantly from where Blocktex sits, is that if we bring it back to a raw material, well, then it can be used in many industries. And so, like I said, the PET is used in bottles and containers. It can be used.
Can I just stop there? So you actually turn clothing into plastic?
Well, it was already plastic by another name, but that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we take something like, so think about a run shirt. We basically recover that, melt that back down, and turn it back into small little pellets. Right. And those pellets are then sold on to a manufacturer who then remelts it down, and then molds it into another product. So that can be turned into playground equipment, tabletops, chairs, a whole bunch of things. Right. And what's really interesting from a cellulose point of view, the cotton point of view, when we separate the cotton from the polyester, it breaks down into effectively a cellulose powder. So it looks kind of like flour. But cellulose is used in a large amount of industries. So it's used as a thickener in paints and adhesives. It's used in concrete as a strengthener, which is really interesting. It's used in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, and it's even used in the food industry as a thickener, something like corn syrup you'd use. So those two fibers, which we've just discarded in the landfill, through smart technology, is able to unlock that back to the raw materials for them to be reused not only in one lifetime, but in many lifetimes across many industries. From our point of view, we're one little piece of a large puzzle. We're obviously positioned at the end of one supply chain, but at the beginning of another supply chain. And what's really exciting about the industry we're in is everybody gets to play their part, consumers, industry, governments. And if we all kind of jump on board with this waste resource recovery timeline, we'll look back and go, why didn't we do this earlier, I think.
Yeah, I just love that you're turning it back into the raw materials. It's amazing. That also in itself teaches people, it's taught me what clothing's even made of in the first place. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exciting times.
Next up is Peter Ball. Peter Ball has written a series of children's books, 17 of them in fact, one for each of the 17 SDGs. Peter, you're the first in the world, I think, to have actually written one book for each of the SDGs, which is surprising. I would have thought they'd already existed.
We were surprised too, yeah, because we went looking for them and couldn't find anything in the sense that there wasn't specific children's books, and we were talking about young kids, beautifully illustrated children's books that we wanted to read to our own kids. So the reality is we thought, well, if we can't find them, let's write them.
Yeah. So these are designed for parents to read to their children. So what's the target age?
So your target age really is probably 4 to 8, or even maybe a little bit earlier. I think we've deliberately chosen the age where there is a parent involved in the reading process, and the numbers still in this state, even this digital age, the numbers of households where a parent is reading to their children every night or at least once a day is still quite phenomenal, and it's great. But what we wanted to do was write these books where it engaged both the children in the learning process, but also the parents, quite frankly, because and that was also part of it, was that we felt that there was nowhere near enough people who really actually understood or really even knew about the Sustainable Development Goals.
So is the objective basically to teach them one at a time, because that's a clearer way? Like, how have you done it?
It is. I mean, as illustrated kids' books, for that target age, there's not an enormous amount of content, you can go into. But, it's the reality is you can still tell a beautiful story. You can articulate, a message, through words and pictures. And, we are, I guess, and, we're not experienced authors, but we've had a lot of fun, working through the process to do that. Each of the SDGs has got a number of sub-goals. There's a lot in each of them. Yeah. So in the first instance, we've tried to keep these books, light and fun and topical. And, the reality is, beyond the books, in fact, the venture's called Beyond the Back Cover. There will be lots of opportunities for parents, with their kids or even on their own to venture beyond the back cover and to explore more, to learn more and engage in the goals.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Actually, you're also speaking to one of the things that seems to be a consistent theme with entrepreneurs in sustainable businesses. Many of them do things they've never done before. So you were never an author either. What made you decide to write 17 books?
Yeah, ignorance maybe. I think it was actually something that we started to do with our kids, to be really honest. It was something that we had the idea around, how do we get more people informed and engaged with, the UN SDGs. And we had read some books that, were great books that had a sort of a purpose, in the story. And, they seemed to be, the first books that they grabbed. And so we thought, well, actually, the SDGs are going to be they already are really important, but, in the lead up to 2030, if, as a planet, as a collective group of, citizens, if we're going to engage, if we're going to achieve these things, we need everyone to be on board, and we need everyone to know about them. So we thought, well, let's start with that. And, the decision makers around, food and waste and energy and, all of the things that the SDGs align to, it's the mums and dads. They're the decision makers. And so the subliminal, opportunity, I think, for us here is to engage with the kids, but actually, teach the parents as well. So
that's brilliant. And they say, get them while they're young, because when they get older, they grow teeth. And they
indeed
something about it, hopefully by 2030.
It seems to be that the SDGs have been, front and centre for the last couple of years now, with big government and with big organisations, which is great that they're adopting these things. I think if we stand any chance to achieve them by 2030, everyone needs to know about them. And I think the ability to sort of go, well, let's, get it into every household. That would be my plea, I guess.
I think your goal is to have every 3-year-old nagging their parents up and down those supermarket aisles to buy an SDG book. That's what it should be.
It would be an amazing outcome.
or lecturing the parents on what they're buying because they learned it in one of your books.
There is some amazing studies done over time as to how people change behaviour, and listening to young children is actually something which drives significant behaviour change. So
I can tell you on Eco World, which is the biggest eco community in Australia, that pretty much every new business, new or eco business in the baby space is started by a new mother, without fail. True story.
Yep.
And it's always for the things that you just no one's solving or aren't being solved well. So we're definitely listening to our kids from the minute they arrive.
Absolutely. Anyway. Absolutely.
Thank you so
unbiased opinions.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much for your time, Peter, and best of luck with the series.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Let me introduce you to Stephanie Devine. Stephanie is from The Very Good Bra, and she makes zero waste bras. Stephanie, how did you get into making zero waste bras? And in fact, what are they?
Okay, well, look, my story starts quite a long time ago when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2006. I was diagnosed on a Friday. I was going to be in the operating theatre on the Monday, and they told me that, there's so much you're trying to absorb, but one of the things that you need is a non-wide bra and a natural fibre. And so I went off to our largest department store looking for such a thing, and the only ones in my size that were lined with cotton were maternity bras, and I'd just been told I'd never have kids after chemo. So, it's a devastating blow as a young woman, and you just think, well, how is that possible? Why do we not have non-wide bras in different sizes, and why not in natural fibres? So it stuck with me for a long time, and then a couple of years later, actually, when I was kind of through it, but still feeling a bit puffy and swollen, I found myself in front of a beautiful boutique looking at these beautiful bras, and she said to me, are they maternity bras? And I explained my problem, that I was a breast cancer survivor, and she said, oh, there's nothing for people like you.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So, and I was a bit shocked, and I thought, well, it's just really wrong. I mean, there's 1 in 8 of us getting breast cancer. Why can we not make non-wide bras in natural fibres? What is wrong with the world? And so, it stuck with me. I didn't do anything immediately because I don't think, until you get to 5 years, you don't necessarily think you're going to make it. But then once I got to that point, I started, and I worked with a bunch of people to make my first organic cotton wire-free bra.
But you wanted to take it for everyone, didn't you? I mean, it's amazing to survive breast cancer. But the issue is that what's in bras isn't particularly pleasant, really.
Yeah, so look, first of all, I wanted to solve the problem of why are these things not available, and why do we only have them in small, medium and large when women are not small, medium and large in the real world? Who's small, medium and large? I don't know these people. So there was that problem. You can get loads of sizes in wire-free and in wide bras and nothing in wire-free. And then the more I learned about the industry and the fact that, they're all made of polyester, and even the ones that are made of organic cotton or bamboo have spandex in them, or they've got nylon elastic or polyester sewing thread. And if there's 2 billion women potentially on the planet wearing bras, and the average woman owns 9 bras, that's 18 billion polyester bras going into landfill, and that's a hell of a lot of